All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Hussein Yahfoufi. Hussein, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Kevin, it's great talking to you again. Thanks for having me.
You bet. I'm gonna start by giving a shout out to Moshe Andre, because he was the one who introduced you and I. And without Moshe, we may have never even met. And I'm trying to remember who introduced me to Moshe.
Mm.
But it was another mutual friend, and I interviewed him a couple months ago on the podcast. And after having that experience, he was like, "Kevin, you definitely need to interview Hussein too and stuff."
So,
And so you and I got to connect already, and have a conversation, get to know each other. And I've been actually just blown away by what you're doing and stuff, and the impact you're making. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you today, Hussein. And
thanks. Yeah.
and we'll just
Yeah.
we'll just dig right in. We're gonna. I'll just ask a nice, simple, easy question to get us rolling, and we'll dive deeper from there and stuff. And so, what to start with, Hussein? What do you do, and who do you serve?
Yeah. It's funny for somebody who doesn't like talking about himself, that is not an easy question, but I'll do it. So my name's Hussein. I'm based in San Diego. I moved to San Diego in 2001.
Okay.
And really, I was always the tech guy at a finance company. So I've been in fintech my whole career. Spent 20 years there. I was CTO for eCapital, CTO for One Roof Energy, and a few other companies. Until eventually I moved into this events world about 3 or 4 years ago and started Eventship. And so my background has always been in product and technical. And one of the challenges that really the CEO at my last company had for us was go out in the world and meet people and start making relationships. And that's why I ended up with this events platform.
Okay. Very cool. So, what jazzes and inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact you get to make, Hussein?
I think it's very similar to yours. It's relationships, right? Like we
Okay.
talked about Moshe and me getting on this podcast because of Moshe. I am now in the business of helping people make relationships and be part of relationship building. And I host an event in San Diego, a North County San Diego startup mixer.
Okay.
Every month, between 150 to 200 people show up to this. And literally,
Wow.
my job at this mixer is just to introduce people and try to make connections. And it's so rewarding, especially when you get that note after the fact that's, hey, Hussein, I just met with that person you introduced me to, and now I have a new client or a job or, you know, um, a relationship, whatever it is. And that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
incredibly rewarding, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you know.
Oh man, I'm with you. That is so, I mean, I love hearing back from folks after I get to introduce them, and hearing what came from their conversations and what they're, I mean, man, I mean, that is the most amazing feeling to hear back from people and say, "Oh yeah, Kev, you were right, man. Connecting me with Hussein, that was awesome," And
Yeah.
yeah, that totally feeds you, doesn't it? That just
Yeah.
totally feeds you. Yeah. So I didn't
Yeah.
realize 150 to 200 people a month are coming to your events right now and stuff. And
Yeah.
so what is it? It's an evening thing. So I mean, just I'll just dig a little deeper, just for in case folks live in the San Diego area and stuff and might want
Yeah.
to find out more. So what is it? Talk about, like, it starts at
Yeah.
what time, goes till how late, and
Yeah. So the mixer, very casual, starts at 5:30, ends at around 8 o'clock officially, and then sometimes people
okay,
just hang out.
okay,
The thing with it is, it started as just me and a couple of other founders in San Diego, and then we invited a few investors, and next thing you know, it just kept growing. Now it's kind of become, and this is 3 years in. I call it's a grown-up block party, right? It is a block party once a month for people to come together. Yes, we will talk about business, but really it's a chance for us to just get to know our neighbors because we all live in San Diego. Get introduced to somebody new. Everybody's working on something, everybody's building something, and have a good time, and then make relationships from there, right?
yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So how did you, so I know you kind of briefly covered it, but what is your backstory? I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman and I never did become a fireman. And at the same time, I would have never even imagined that I'd be doing what I get to do today and stuff. And that I kind of created my whole business and job title, if you will. What is your backstory, Hussein? I mean,
Yeah.
how did you even get here?
Good question. So my backstory is kind of interesting. I'm originally from Lebanon, and we had immigrated out of Lebanon. We were in Canada, so I was raised in, English and French speaking schools, not Arabic schools. And when we went back to Lebanon, my dad basically approached me at 16, and he said, "Look, I don't think you're ever going to be good at school. You don't seem to like it. You have to learn Arabic and." It's not going to happen. Why don't you quit school and come work with me at the store? And he owned a jewelry store at the time. So I actually dropped out of, I didn't even make it to high school, right? And so that was kind of the path. At 19, we moved to Michigan. And then my dad owned another retail store. It was a cigar shop. And then I was working there because that's what I did. Like I didn't go to school. I was working, and my day was basically 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at this store. And I remember just looking at it going, is this what my life is going to be? Am I going to be sitting in the store, looking at these four walls, hoping for somebody to come in so I can have a conversation with them? And then they leave, and that's life, right? And then I decided, no, like at 19, I need to go back to school. I need to get a degree, and I need to make something out of this whole thing. And I couldn't do it in Michigan because, expectations was I'm helping the family business. So I saved up a little bit of money, moved to initially to LA and then to San Diego, went to school. And I actually did it in reverse. I enrolled in community college because they didn't ask for a high school degree. And then it wasn't until I transferred to university that they came back and said, hold up, like, where's your high school diploma? So then I had to rush to go get a GED so I can pass high school and then give that to them and then go to college, and kind of the rest is history. And so not in a million years that I think I'd be here right now on a podcast, like talking about careers and, you know, doing things, right? Like I thought my path was I'm going to work in a retail shop, either in Lebanon or in Michigan.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. That is fascinating. I mean, every entrepreneur has an amazing backstory, and you definitely do as well, Hussein. So, I mean, let's go deeper into some of the results that have come, from you hosting these get-togethers, and you don't have to name names or anything like that. You can if you want. That's totally your call. But what's some results that have come from you just hosting these events and bringing these kind of people together and stuff?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. For me personally, even though I was a previous founder and I sold a company and I was the CTO at different companies in San Diego, being the host of this mixer for me personally has kind of put me on the map, right? So now when somebody comes to San Diego and says, who should I meet at the tech scene or in the startup scene in San Diego? I'm one of the 3 or 4 people that gets named on. You should meet Hussein. He does all the startupy things, right? Because of hosting an event. So that's for me personally. Now, for others on the in the scene, I've heard things, and I don't have their permission to name names, so I'm not going to
Huh?
name names. But for example, I have a company. They're a beverages company, right? And the guy who's the founder, he wanted to do alternative waters that's flavored, that's not necessarily carbonated, right? And
Okay.
so he was looking for founders and looking for investors. And then he ended up meeting an investor at the meetup, right? So one of these months he goes there,
That's awesome.
they ended up meeting, and then that person becomes his first investor. And then they launched their first product, which was the water. And now that can of water is at Target, right? And so that's the
Nice.
story that happened from the mixer. Another one, there's stay-at-home mom that recently went through a divorce, and obviously, like the struggle becomes crap. Now I need to get a job, and she has to support herself and her kid. And then she goes to the meetup. She starts talking to people, starts tweaking how to explain what she works on and all that, just from practicing, chatting with folks. And then eventually somebody at the meetup says, oh, well, I have the startup. I just raised money. I need help with marketing. Seems like that's what you know how to do. And then it wasn't a full-time gig, but it was still a part-time gig that got landed on in the mixer. And so for her, it was this full, kind of life cycle of practicing being out in the world again, practicing talking about what you did 5 years ago when your kid, before going out on maternity,
Yeah.
and then now coming back into the market and being able to try to land something, and then landing something. So that's
That's
just two
awesome.
examples that come up, and
Yeah.
it's super
I love it.
rewarding. Yeah.
I love it. Well, let's talk a little bit more about eventship. So you host events, and eventship is to help support other people who are hosting events. So let's talk a little bit about that. How does it work, and who's your idea? Let's just start with who's your ideal person that you guys get to help through eventship.
Yeah. The ideal is really folks who are looking to host events with the purpose of building community, right? And that
Okay.
means different things for people. So for some people, it's literally they just want to meet people in their industry and grow their network. That's fine. For others, it's a B2B lead gen play, right? Like they're a SaaS company and they're looking for new customers that need their services. So they host events trying to find those kinds of people to go to their events. The
Okay.
root of it, or the reason I got into this whole business, is the relationship side, right? Because what I had seen in the industry is you host an event, and my event was one. And then when you host a second event, you're kind of starting over. You don't know who was at the first event and are they coming, or unless you have your own Google Sheets and notes that
Uh-huh.
you're tracking, which is what all of us do until eventship, right? And so the idea with eventship is this idea of we're hosting events because we want to build relationships with people. We want people that go to events to build relationships with them, each other.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing it because I'm looking for potential clients, I need to know the history of, has this person been to my event before? Has anybody else from their company been at my event before? Like those kinds of things. And that's kind of how Eventship was born.
Okay. Okay. And so anybody that's hosting events with the intention of using those events to build and create community around them and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So um what well who are some can you share some of the clients you're already serving
Yeah.
and kind of give people an idea?
Yeah. So a couple of ideas, and they're wildly different, right? So in San Diego, we have a company called Sea Trees. It's a nonprofit that basically does ocean restoration. But they have a really cool office that they call the Sea House. And one of
Okay.
the things that they've turned their office space into is almost like a showcase of some of their projects, because they have pictures and videos of all the work that they've done, and they want to bring people into the Sea House. And they host events now at the Sea House in the afternoon to bring people into the space, get to know about what Sea Trees is and all of that. So that's one of our hosts.
Okay.
Completely different. We have TEFCON, which is a defense industry once a year conference that happens in San Diego. That's also on the platform, and the next one is in January. Um,
You're right.
we
That is
also
dramatically different from the first
very
example.
different, right? And then we have one in the middle called the In-Betweeners. So a good buddy of mine, his name is Scott. He moved here from Colorado. He had a business, sold it, came to San Diego, and then he's been trying to decide, what do I do next? He's not
Okay.
necessarily looking for the next job, but he's looking for, what should I do now? And so he came up with this meetup called the In-Betweeners for people like him. So either you're struggling with trying to decide what to do next. Should I change careers? Should I start a business? Should I sell the business and do something else? I already sold the business. What do I do now? Like it could go in a million different ways. Or you're just looking for the next job. Now there's a group that gets together. I think there are 20 or 30 people show up every month to this thing,
Okay.
just to help each other with, how do you process that? How do you figure out what's your next thing?
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. I really appreciate you sharing. 'Cause, like, those are three dramatically different examples that just really paint a picture of like the kinds of companies that can use and really benefit from what you guys are doing at Eventship and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to start
Mhm.
talking about the relationship side of all this in more detail. So,
Yeah.
Hussein, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, actually, tons. The hardest part was trying to figure out, okay, I know we're going to talk about this because you gave me the
Uh-huh.
heads up. And then I was trying to think through how do I pick the one or two? Because I was able to distill it down to maybe six. And I was like, I don't
Okay.
know if we're going to be able to talk about all six. But to answer your question, absolutely. Like, absolutely. When I think through my career, especially being somebody who came from Michigan to California with 5K in his pocket, not knowing what's going to happen next. Everything that I have and everything I was able to do, even career wise and school wise, was through relationships, right? Like
Yeah.
having that one conversation that once you have that changes everything, right? So, one example early on in my career, uh, I was still like a nobody analyst at a company called LPL Financial here in town. I was lucky enough to meet this guy named Chris Feeney, who was the CTO of the company, right? So I'm at the bottom of the chain, he's at the top of the chain. And then after we met, after one meeting, I just asked him as a naive little analyst who's just starting in his career, and I said, would you be open to meeting with me once a quarter just to talk about like careers and how to succeed at LPL, what I can help with, that kind of thing? And of course, and now being that I've been in that role, they'll always say yes. Nobody will ever say no to this, especially like if you have a junior person on your team who is ambitious and wants to do things.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
those meetings completely changed my career at LPL because I was able to do my job, which was a very entry level job, but
Okay.
have the thinking of this executive of what I'm doing. How does it impact what the company's actually trying to do and why they're asking me to do this thing? And what is my manager and my VP and my senior VP? I mean, there were so many people in between us, but I had access to the top guy who would guide me through these things. And that was completely like it changed my career at
Yeah.
LPL, right? And
Yeah.
so I
Wow.
spent 7 years at LPL and I ended up every 4 to 6 months getting a promotion. I went from analyst to assistant vice president pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that is because I was building all these relationships while I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you were, you were just motivated or inspired that you just wanted to make your biggest impact while you were there in the role that you were in and stuff.
Yep. Yep.
And by asking him that, that he just like, wow, well, yeah, I bet that had never happened to him before,
Um,
where he had, a lower level person come and say, hey, I really want to be effective here in my role. And can we spend some time together and you just kind of help me become more effective at doing what I
yep.
do? And,
Yep.
uh, and what's interesting is I connected with a gentleman from Alvernia University recently and did a podcast interview with him. His name's
Mhm.
Rodney. Rodney Ridley is his name.
Yep.
And they're doing some amazing stuff at Alvernia. And the kids who go to school there, the college, they partner with businesses in the area, and so that these kids going to school get real on the job experience working for companies in the area to do the stuff that they're wanting to learn in school and stuff. And so it's a really cool thing where everybody wins. And really, it's not like he had to talk me into it, but he's like, Kevin, he's like, you running this podcast, he said, we have students who are running podcasts. And you would
Mm.
be I'm thinking of one guy in particular, Jordan, that you would be a really great mentor for. And I would like to connect you. And I think you should start mentoring him. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, okay. And actually, Jordan and I just had our first call a couple of days ago on Monday.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
and, uh,
Awesome.
and so, like you said, people. The people running companies and stuff, they're wide open to this,
Hmm.
especially if they've been an entrepreneur for a while, because they're just like, yeah, I want to share what I've learned with other people who want to learn from me and stuff,
Yep.
and I can tell you, the conversation that I had with Jordan, heck, I'm learning stuff from him too, and just
Yeah.
off that one conversation,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. What I would also say is it depends on how you position it, right? So I get a lot of cold emails and LinkedIn messages that's like, hey, Hussein, love what you do. Can I buy you coffee, just 15 minutes of your time? And I want to pick your brain,
yeah,
right? That doesn't drive me. Like that does
yeah,
not give me anything. Like, no, I'm not going to take time out of my day to go meet you at a coffee shop, which is going to turn into 30 minutes to an hour. It's never 15 minutes and then drive back home. Like now you're asking me for 2 hours
yeah,
so you can pick my brain. Like, no, I can charge you consulting hours for that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But when you approach it as I'm a new founder, I'm trying to figure out what to do. I have these challenges. I've seen you sell your first company and now you're building your second company. I'd love to be able to talk to you, like whatever works for you. Let's get on a call for 5 minutes just so I can like share some ideas and you can give me tips. That's a very different way of approaching it and asking for, somebody to spend time on you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, well, is there anybody else? Because I know you mentioned you narrowed it down to a few, and I don't want to just keep going with what questions I would ask. I want to make sure you get the opportunity to honor anybody else that you might want to honor too.
Hey, honestly, there's tons. So another one, and this is again power of relationships, right? So while I was at LPL, I worked with this guy Andreas Frund, who was a consultant that came into LPL to help on a project, and him and I worked together, and we worked really well together. He moved on, and then I had moved on from LPL as well. I was at another company. Him and I hadn't been in touch in I don't know 3 years, maybe
Okay.
four. And then he sends me this text, emergency, I need to talk to you, right? And I'm sitting in a meeting at Wondriff. I'm going, oh, like, what is happening? I haven't heard from this guy in a long time. What's going on?
Uh-huh. Like,
So
oh,
I
is
pick up
everything
the phone.
okay?
Exactly. Is everything okay? Like, is he in my neighborhood and he needs help? So I come out of the meeting. I call him right away. Andreas, what's going on? How's it going? And he says, oh, no, no, no. Everything's fine. But um, I'm working with this potential client up in Carlsbad, and I just found out they need a new CTO. And I was like, I know the guy who can come here and solve everything for you. Let me introduce you. So he introduces me to the two owners of that business.
Okay.
Uh, Him and them ended up not working together. So he didn't actually get anything out of this thing because he moved on to his next pitch. But then I ended up moving from One Roof Energy to eCapital to work with these two gentlemen. And I spent 7 years at eCapital. And when I started, not my previous business, Money Minx, but when I started Eventship, they were actually my first angel investors into Eventship as
Oh,
well, right? And
very
so that's
good.
all just from you have this one relationship,
Yep.
he makes a phone call, you show up, and then next thing you know, all this stuff happens. Just from meeting somebody, that we
Yeah.
worked together for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And I love that because you hear these stories of people trying to pitch investors all the time and stuff, what a different scenario that was. That you had already
Yeah.
got to know these gentlemen, you'd been of service to them, helping them out in their company, and then when you go to start eventship, and I don't know what the conversation was, but
Hmm.
whatever it was, they're like, you know what, we're going to invest in you,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Anybody else that you want to honor?
All right, we'll do one more. Otherwise, I
Okay.
can do this all day. We'll do
Okay.
one. So this guy, Nikolai, he used to be a power user of my first startup called Money Minx. Um, and one of the things that I actually, when I talk to founders these days, I tell them all the time is take care of your early users, take care of your power users, make sure you get to know them. And so with Nikolai, I used to every couple of weeks send him a note. How are things going? How's the product? Any feedback, any changes, and anything he asked for immediately went to the top of my priority list of things that I need to do. Now,
Okay.
what I didn't know about him is it turns out he was a VC in the Bay Area. And he had just invested in this company called Arta Finance, who, while he was in a board meeting, happened to have a conversation on one of the things that we need to do as part of our roadmap is this way to consolidate people's investments into one place. And we're going to start working on that very soon. And then Nikolai goes, hold up. I know a guy. His name is Hussein, and I use his product, and I know exactly what you're asking for because I'm paying him to use his product. You should talk to him instead. So he makes the introduction, which went from, initially it was let's partner up and they can license my technology, and then it turned into actually we want to acquire the whole thing so you can join us full time and be with us full time, right? And again, this is you just have that one person who makes
Yeah,
this connection or introduction, and off you go.
that's right. That's right. Man, what, three beautiful and powerful examples right there of the value of right relationships,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
just beautiful examples of that right there. So, what's an example of a situation where you personally, Hussein, got to make a really substantial impact? Maybe in the moment, maybe it even surprised you or you're a little bit. You're like, wow, look at what just happened there. And yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with any one of the three people or four people that you've mentioned here. What's an example where of a situation where you were empowered that way?
Yeah, so luckily by being in an executive role, I've at companies, I've had the opportunity to do that many times, right? And then obviously with the mixer too. But
Okay.
I'll give you an example. There's a guy that was on our team. His name is Kevin, super smart guy, nicest guy you ever met. And he was a service desk person, like an IT person, right?
Okay.
And his goal was he wants to get into engineering, right? And he had tried to find engineering jobs that could just never really stuck. And so him and I had a conversation once. And one of the things that I always did when I managed big teams is I tried to, because of relationships and how powerful I know they are, I always tried to ask people, do you like what you do? What do you want to do for your career? How's your, like, who are you? Like, really get to know everybody on the team. And one of the things he had mentioned was, well, to be honest, I'm hoping that I can become a software engineer once, right? And so right away we figured we were looking for software engineers, right? Let's give him a shot. Like, let's get him a little bit of training, see how he does, and then he can work with the senior engineers and kind of let it go from there. So he did that for a bit. Eventually, he moved on from eCapital. But maybe a couple of years later, he sends me a text and he goes, I just want to let you know, I just got promoted to engineering manager at this company that I work for. And had you and I not had that one conversation, and then you given me the shot to be an engineer, I would not be an engineering manager now doing like my dream job, right? And
Wow.
off from there.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things like that where because of my role, you can kind of be able to help, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that because, like, I've got to experience a lot of that in my life, and I know just how amazing that feels. It's just this incredible feel. It just totally feeds you, and
yeah,
just makes you feel good. Yeah, yeah. Well, for anybody that is listening to this and thinking to themselves, man, Kevin, I really love Hussein. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And maybe they'd like to find out more about what you guys are doing and stuff. Any websites, any info we can share with folks?
yeah. I mean, honestly, two things. If you want to connect with me, easiest way is go on LinkedIn, find me, Hussein Yahfoufi. There's not that
Okay.
many of us, and then let's connect. I always take connections and talk to people, and then
Okay.
for eventship, it's just eventship.com. Just go
Okay.
there, and yeah, thanks.
And I'll make it nice and easy. I'll make sure that we have you just scroll down a little bit there, and we will have both of those links nice right there for you with the show notes. Make it nice and easy. You don't have to type nothing in; just click the links. You can go to either place there and stuff. Hussein, any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
One advice is just unsolicited advice for everybody, because I go to a lot of events and I see a lot of people at events. And one of the things that I always tell people is, look, like, quality over quantity, right? Like, nothing
Yes.
pains me more when I go to an event and I see somebody who starts talking to you, and then as soon as they realize, I don't think you're going to be my client, they move to the next thing,
Yeah.
right? And what people have to realize, it takes time, right, to build a relationship. And if you and I talk and we have a really good conversation, I'm more likely to want to try to help you out, even if
Yep.
I'm not in. Let's say you have a, I don't know, legal AI tech thing. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't need your services, but I work with a lot of attorneys, right? And if we had a great conversation, there's a higher likelihood that I'm going to go to my attorney friends and say, by the way, yesterday I met this guy or this gal who works at this company and this is their service. Have you ever heard about them? You should check it out, right? And so when you go to events, don't go into it with this idea of how am I going to take or get the most out of this event. Just
Yeah.
go at it with like this give first mentality of, you're just going to talk to people, hear them out, and then eventually something will happen, right? You just got
That's
to
right.
trust it.
That's right. Yeah. Man, I see that so much at events. I mean, I have gone to so many events over the years, and you're right, a lot of people, I think they kind of feel like, well, it's a networking opportunity, and I gotta make hay while the sun shines because it's only for whatever. It's only for, if it's
Yep.
an evening thing, it's only for a couple hours. Maybe it's a 2-day thing, but either way, it's finite. And so
Yeah.
they're like, I'm gonna go, 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 go. And versus what you're talking about is, you know what? Just go deep with a small number of people. If I'm at a
Hmm.
2.5 day event, if I have deep conversations with 4, 5, 6 people, man, that's plenty.
Yep.
And we
Exactly.
don't need to go wide, just go narrow and deep, and make
Exactly.
just real meaningful connection with people. And
Yep.
that's going to serve you so much better. Well, Hussein, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with folks. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Kevin. This was blessed.
You bet.